Halloween Horror, investigating the 2004 Napa Valley murders. Halloween night 2004, two roommates were brutally murdered in their Napa Valley, California home. Welcome to Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's true crime podcast, where we dive into the most chilling, mysterious, and unsolved stories from across the world. I'm your host, Nicoll of Nicoll Investigations, and today we're heading to the scenic and serene Napa Valley, a place known for its rolling vineyards, peaceful atmosphere, and refined luxury. But in 2004, the quiet town of Napa was rocked by a brutal crime that would leave everyone reeling: the Halloween murders. The story is about more than just a tragedy, about fear, betrayal, and the lasting effects of violence on a close-knit community. Turn down the lights, get comfortable, and join us as we explore the chilling details of this Halloween night horror. Every year, Napa Valley, California, famous for its scenery and top-notch vineyards, attracts visitors seeking tranquility and relaxation. It is a region associated with wealth and peaceful living. It's Halloween night in Napa, California, and the streets were alive with excitement and celebrations. Kids were dressed up, running from door to door in their colorful costumes. But by the time night had fallen, the small community of Napa had turned quiet. As trick-or-treaters retired to bed, a real nightmare was about to begin on Dorset Street, in a quaint, cozy rental home where three young women lived together. The residents of the home were friends: Adrian and Signa, Leslie Ann Madsera, and Lauren Miatsna. All three were in their 20s, independent and close friends. Adrian, 26, was a civil engineer. Leslie, 26, had recently moved from South Carolina and was a bright and friendly young woman who loved people. Lauren, 27, was a volleyball coach with a bubbly personality and a big heart. Together, they shared a life many young adults could relate to, filled with hard work, dreams, and close friendships. Their bond would be tested in the most horrifying way that night. Halloween night, 2004. The night of October 31st was normal, at least on the surface. Women handed out candy to trick-or-treaters, watched scary movies, and eventually went to bed in their separate rooms, each settling down for the night. They had no idea this seemingly routine Halloween evening would soon become a nightmare. Unbeknownst to them, a killer lurked in the shadows, waiting to take advantage of the quiet night. The house in Dorset Street, surrounded by well-kept lawns and flanked by similarly tiny homes, seemed an unlikely target for such brutality. In the early hours of November 1st, around 1 a.m., an intruder entered the house. At first, no one noticed. The intruder crept upstairs quietly, heading towards the bedrooms. Still unclear what set him off, but soon he violently attacked Leslie in her bedroom. The commotion woke up Adrian, who ran to Leslie's room to help her. Tragically, she was also attacked and brutally stabbed. Sounds of struggle and fear had awakened Lauren, who was in her own bedroom on the first floor. In a panic, she realized that something horrible was happening. Initially confused at what she was hearing, her confusion quickly became terror, as noises turned to shattered glass and screaming. Fearing for her life, Lauren did the only thing she could think of. She escaped through her bedroom window and ran for her life, hiding in the bushes outside until she felt it was safe. Once the intruder fled, Lauren gathered her courage and re-entered the house, only to find a horrifying scene. Leslie and Adrian had both suffered multiple stab wounds and were beyond help. The brutality and randomness of the attack shocked everyone in the community. Up next, the investigation. Investigation. The Napa police quickly arrived at the scene. Crime was baffling. There was no clear motive, no signs of forced entry, which suggested that the intruder either knew the victims or gained entry by some other means. Investigators found physical evidence at the scene, including cigarette butts outside the home and blood from the perpetrator. Carefully collected these pieces of evidence, hoping they would lead to answers, but they faced an uphill battle. Napa, a town unaccustomed to violent crime, is thrown into a state of fear. The randomness of the murders gave rise to fears that a dangerous individual might be targeting the community at large. Forensic evidence soon became a crucial part of the investigation. Detectives collected DNA samples from the crime scene, hoping they would lead them to the killer. Despite their efforts, the investigation initially stalled. Hundreds of potential suspects were tested, but none of the DNA samples matched. Investigators focused on several men who had connections to Adrian Insogna and Leslie Mazzera, including ex-boyfriends, neighbors, and acquaintances. Still, each DNA sample collected had to be tested and ruled out, which took time. Breakthrough and arrest. Nearly a year later, a breakthrough came, not in the way anyone expected. During the investigation, police had questioned Eric Koppel, fiancé of one of Adrian's friends. Koppel had been at the funeral and was involved in supporting Adrian's family after the murders. Initially, he was not a suspect, and even during initial questioning, he had seemed cooperative. Koppel was one of the hundreds of potential connections authorities focused on early in the investigation. When authorities asked for a DNA sample, Koppel readily provided it. However, in 2005, Koppel's behavior became erratic. He unexpectedly confessed the brutal murders to his family. His confession came as a complete shock, not only to his family, but the whole Napa community. Koppel claimed he'd been struggling with intense jealousy and resentment towards Adrian, though the full extent of his motive remains unclear to this day. Upon learning of his confession, the police brought him in and matched his DNA to the blood evidence from the crime scene, confirming he was the killer. Koppel was arrested and in court he pleaded guilty, sparing the families the pain of a long trial. Koppel shocked everyone by admitting to the murders after being arrested without giving a reason for his actions, other than mentioning his battles with alcoholism and depression as contributing factors. However, it was learned during the investigation that Koppel was engaged to a woman named Lily Prudhomme, who also happened to be good friends with Adrian Insogna. It was learned that leading up to the murders, Adrian had tried to persuade Lily to end her engagement to Koppel. This could explain Koppel's motive, as well as the viciousness with which the murders were carried out. To avoid putting the families through a trial and to show regret for his actions, Koppel chose to plead guilty to the charges against him. Up next, sentencing. Sentencing. Eric Koppel's confession and subsequent conviction brought a sense of closure to some, but left many questions unanswered. What exactly drove him to commit such a violent act? And how could he keep such a dark secret for nearly a year? These questions haunted not only the families of the victims, but the entire community. Eric Koppel received a life sentence with no chance of parole in 2006 after a heart-wrenching court hearing where family members of the victims delivered powerful impact statements, describing the immense grief and loss they had suffered. They spoke of the stolen futures, countless moments they would never get to share with Adrian and Leslie, and the enduring pain that would follow them for the rest of their lives. During his sentence phase, Koppel regretted his actions and apologized to the families. For some observers, his words seemed hollow. No amount of apologies could restore the lost lives or mend the deep wounds he caused. In closing thoughts, the memory of Adrian Insogna and Leslie Mazzera continues through the dedication of their families, who have tirelessly preserved their legacies by creating scholarships in their honor and celebrating their lives, choosing to focus not on how they passed away, but instead how they lived, brought comfort and joy to others. Tragic 2004 murders in Napa Valley highlight the stark reality that even the most seemingly peaceful places can harbor darkness, and the serene soundings in Napa Valley could not shield Adrian and Leslie from the violence that their lives. Closure in the investigation does little to ease the lingering sorrow and shock over the senseless act that forever changed the lives of those involved. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's True Crime Podcast. We reflect on this case. Remember that behind every headline are real people whose lives were forever changed. The Halloween murders remind us of the chilling reality of senseless violence and the importance of seeking justice, no matter how elusive it may seem. Found this episode intriguing? Make sure to subscribe for more stories that uncover the darkest corners of human nature. If there's a case you'd like us to cover, feel free to reach out on our social media channels. Next time, stay safe, stay aware, and keep the lights on.